the Madman!
Welcome to the Blood Death Knight cards, and with all these cards revealed, all the Death Knight cards have actually been revealed before you see barely any of the other class cards or the neutral cards in the set. So I thought this quite possibly was the most hype reveal because I think I'm in love. Really, really good control cards. Like I rarely speculate about how good stuff is, especially since we haven't seen the rest of the set. But this is it. This is, I think, tier 1. Holy cow. We'll begin with a pretty good control card. Heart Strike. 1 mana, 1 blood rune requirement. Deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, gain a corpse. Yeah, it's Holy Smite, and it has the additional benefit that if you kill something, which is probably what you should be doing when you're casting, you know, 1 mana deal 3 spell, you get a corpse. It's nice. That's like the start of how Blood Death Knights will not be dying early, I suppose. And you've got an interesting other option for anti-aggro early game. You got Noxious Cadaver, 1 mana, 1 blood rune requirement, 1/2 undead. Battle Cry, deal 2 damage to an enemy and your hero. It's actually a little bit difficult to know whether you should run Heart Strike or Noxious Cadaver in your deck. They're both so good. Yeah, you take a little bit of damage, but with the amount of control you're gonna have, it's pretty sweet. I think while Heart Strike is perhaps more suitable for the control decks, Noxious Cadaver is perhaps going to be more generally good, where it makes a lot of sense in a tempo deck to add this in because extra 1 damage a turn could matter. Blood Tap, 2 mana, 2 blood rune requirement, shadow spell. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. Spend 3 corpses to give them +1/+1 more. So this is very much like conditioning, which is still in the meta, and you could play conditioning. I actually think conditioning is better than Blood Tap right now. 5 mana is probably about when you would consistently get 3 corpses. I certainly don't think you're going to have 3 corpses on turn 2. Blood Tap seems a little questionable to me. Furthermore, I think that the 2 blood rune requirement is quite heavy because I don't believe that the blood section should be running the minions. I do think like 1 blood, 2 unholy is a good option. Maybe even 1 blood, 1 unholy, 1 frost for the rainbow Death Knight, for the 1 of each Death Knight. I think that's actually a really good option. But on first instinct, I feel like Blood Tap may possibly, because it has 2 blood runes in it, just not really be the best choice. Which is unlike the Dark Fallen Neophyte, 3 mana, 1 blood rune requirement, 2/5 undead, Battlecry, spend 2 corpses to give all minions in your hand +2 attack. Now this one looks like it's got really good potential in conjunction with the unholy Death Knight cards. You could run this card alongside the 4 mana summon 3/1/3 cards, and then all of a sudden you're summoning 3 3/3s for 4 mana. That's pretty sweet. Makes a lot of sense to play this in a minion heavy deck, a swarmy deck. A lot of the decision making on how good this card is and if that deck is good, depends on the neutral cards to see if there's strong neutrals that swarm, that are perhaps undead, that are just good stats for the cost. But again, like, I could see the blood unholy frost combo where you're running blood for the Dark Fallen Neophyte, you're running frost for the 3 mana 3/4 that, you know, draws cards when undead minions die, and then you're running the 1 unholy for the main baseline of undead minions and just efficient minions. I could see it. Another hand buffing card, we got Vicious Bloodworm, 2 mana 3/2 beast, Battlecry, give a minion in your hand attack equal to this minion's attack. With only 1 blood rune requirement, like this can be slotted into the 1/2 or the 1/1/1 deck. Seems efficient. It's a 2 mana 3/2 that buffs by 3 at minimum, so, you know, 2 mana 6/2 eventually. If you hand buff this, then the buff that this gives another minion is even more than 3 attack. Seems like an obvious addition to a aggressive deck, or a tempo deck. 3 mana weapon here, 1 blood rune requirement, 3/2 weapon. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, gain 2 corpses. It seems solid. Fire War Axe isn't very exciting, so I'm not gonna say like, wow, this power creeps War Axe so hard. And it's like, okay, nice little benefit on the Fire War Axe. What I am going to say though, is that coming up on Blood is an insane way to spend your corpses. Yeah, I could see the value of having some corpses. Also, if you're playing a heavy Blood control deck, you might not actually have enough corpses to cast your big card later, so you might want to stockpile your corpses with Soulbreaker, so I could see this. Cool little removal card here with a cool name, Asphyxiate. 3 mana, 2 Blood Rune requirement, Shadow Spell, destroy the highest attack enemy minion. It's like Deadly Shot, but you always hit correctly. Fun little note, you can kill the Jailer with this because it gets around the targeting requirement of immune protecting things. Like 3 mana for a like almost totally very clean removal spell. That's quite good. We got Hematurge, 2 mana, 2 Blood Rune requirement, 2/3. Battlecry, spend a corpse to discover a Blood Rune card. Well, this is like the most obvious throw it into a deck that has 2 Blood Runes that I've ever seen. You don't see 2 mana 2/3s that discover a good card. And the cost is rather small, it's like 1 corpse. The stat line is so good that you might actually play this on turn 2 against an aggressive deck when you're a control deck and you know that the opponent's deck is very aggressive. On top of that, there are quite a lot of really good Blood Rune cards. They're coming up. Easy 2 of in any deck that has 2 Blood Runes in it. Deathstrike, 4 mana, 1 Blood Rune. Lifesteal, deal 6 damage to a minion. This card is the Warlock Spellstone card, like upgraded all the way without having to do any of the work. I'm very certain that this card will be quite strong in, you know, control decks. Stays alive, removes the damage coming in. Very good tool. And you're going to need that amount of health for the core legendary for Death Knights, Deathbringer Sourfang, 2 Blood Rune requirement, 5 mana, 3/5 with taunt, so it's good old Taz Dingo, except costs 1 more mana. So this undead card better have a really good Death Rattle. Death Rattle, return this to your hand, it costs health instead of mana. Are you telling me this is a 3/5 taunt that costs 0 mana later on? Oh! I think a lot of people underestimate this card very drastically. It's like, yeah, sure, it fireballs your face when you play it, but it's 0 mana 3/5. And it has taunt, which means the 5 health is returning to you because they have to get through this. So I think the better way of putting it is like, it's 0, like you have to pay the upfront cost of 5 mana 3/5 taunt, which obviously isn't very good, but then throughout the game, you're going to just randomly deal 3 damage to minions, like every once in a while, like every single time they have to get through this taunt. And that takes out a lot of repetitive damage. This card like provides some serious board control. Now it should be noted that when cards go back to hand from on the board, they lose their buffs. So it's not that good, like before you get into mind, wow, I'm just gonna buff this and then it's gonna be ridiculous. But I personally really like the card. I know that that is a little bit of a contrarian opinion, judging from early reaction to that card. But hey, who's the big value control player? Is it you? Is it these clowns out there? No, it's me. It's me. It's real good, I think. Over on 6 mana, we got another weapon. Corrupted Ashbringer. Lifesteal. And common! I'm just like, I never comment on a card's rarity, except this one I will comment on. It's the Corrupted Ashbringer, and it's common. Now, this one is common just because it has a very simplistic, you know, text lifesteal. This card, you know, in my opinion, it shouldn't have been named the Corrupted Ashbringer. It should have been just named like Lifestealer Club or something. Anyway, 6 mana, 2 Blood Rune requirement for 5/2 weapon with lifesteal, so it's pretty solid. It's 2 removals for 6 mana. You'll generally gain a little bit of health on it. I don't think it's particularly exciting. It's not, you know, wow, this card is gonna make Control Warrior super good, but it could be a solid enough tool to like maybe see play in that deck. Okay, Are you ready for the good stuff? It's the big stuff. It's the big stuff of which we're gonna see 2 cards with 3 rune requirements. Buckle up. This is the stuff that makes Control Death Knight so good, alongside with, you know, some of the earlier tools revealed. Like I'll quickly remind you of some of the tools that it already has. Like it has Patchwork for incredible disruption. It's got Obliterate for hard removal. It's got Blood Boil for the area of effect control plus gaining life over time. It's got No Muncher for a good statted minion that is fast in killing enemy things and like gains you health at the same time. Blood's got the tools to get to the late game. And what's it gonna do when it gets to the late game? Well, perhaps it plays its 3 blood rune card here. Alexandros Mograine. 7 mana, 7/7 undead. Battlecry. For the rest of the game, deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns. So, I believe this card encapsulates what Blood Death Knights are all about. Vampiric Blood gives you a huge health pool, so you're in it for the long haul when you're playing the triple blood deck. Alexandros Mograine is like, alright, we're not going to kill you very fast, but we are going to eventually kill you. So, yeah, that's Mograine. It's a 7 mana 7/7. It doesn't really do much. Against an aggro deck, it is basically going to be War Golem. But the important thing is it gives you inevitability against these control decks. Against these combo decks, which might not be able to combo you out because you actually could have 60 health. You could have more health than 60 health. But this is the win condition. The nice thing about playing the Triple Blood Death Knight deck is that I will always be able to just point to this guy and be like, whoo, where's the win condition, Trump? Oh, look, right there. That's the win condition. I am going to say, like, if the meta does not come out to be control heavy, you probably don't need to run Alexandros Mograine. Just, you know, eventually win in a different way. But this gives you the inevitable win, which is important if there's a lot of this deck, because you're going to need this against the mirror. By the way, this does work with Bran. And I think that's gross overkill. Your brand could probably be used for something better, but it is going to be very tempting to, on turn 10, play Bran Mograine. And some people will try to play this on turn 7, and I think that's mostly going to be a mistake. This card is meant to be played after your opponent's doesn't have any serious threats anymore. But yeah, a little bit of history about me and why I'm so bullish about Blood Death Knight, I suppose. The very first deck I ever played in a collectible card game was blue-white control. Like, you know, that's the natural deck that I gravitated towards. When I say very first deck, I mean like very first serious deck building attempt. It was somewhere in the 7th edition era. And the way that I killed the opponent was with Millstone, which is exactly the way that Alexandros Mograine kills you. Millstone is a card that mills your opponent like a few cards each turn, and eventually they lose the game because they can't draw any more cards. Now, do we show the super OP card last, or do we show it next? I'm going to show it last. We'll just show another very good card first. Bone Guard Commander, 8 mana, 1 blood rune requirement. 1 blood rune, very important by the way. 8/8 undead with taunt. Battlecry, raise up to 6 corpses as 1/2 risen footmen with taunt. This guy raises an army by itself, plus is huge himself. Like, one of the big things about Hearthstone is you don't want to play too many big cards together because the mass AoE removal will be too valuable. And you don't want to play too many small cards together because the small AoE removal will be too good against you. So what's really good is when you play a big card and you play several small cards together. This card does it all in one card. It raises your 6 corpses as 1/2 risen footmen, which by the way is an excellent corpse to stat ratio. Now they are risen footmen, so they don't provide corpses themselves, but it is a really good way of spending corpses. And as I saw yesterday with the unholy cards, there actually aren't that many good ways to spend corpses. Keeps you alive with 7 taunts potentially on the board. Now that's cheating. That's real cheating. Whew. Your unholy corpse generation machine finally has a way to like use all those corpses very efficiently. And your control deck, like, this is a nice end game card. Obviously, control decks like having big cards with big effects. This one helps you stay alive, even puts some serious pressure on the opponent. And there's not that many ways to spend corpses when you're a control deck. And here's the finale card. Save the best for last. It's Soul Stealer. It's a triple Blood Rune requirement, which means it better be really good, but I have some good news. It's really good. 5/5 Undead. Battlecry, destroy all other minions. By the way, gain 1 corpse for each enemy destroyed. You know, that's just little sprinkles on the top of the already really good. It's Twisting Nether, which gives you a free 5/5. Twisting Nether is one of those cards that doesn't necessarily get power crept over the years, because over the years there's better and better minions to like mass board clear. So like while the minions obviously get better over time, like the hard AoE removal does not necessarily get better over time. So this is like a markedly better Twisting Nether because you're getting free 5/5. You're also getting corpses for free. It's really good. It's really, really good. This card makes you want to play 3 Blood. And I think the other cards all make you really want to play 3 Blood. I couldn't say the same about the other 3 Frost or 3 Unholy cards. I was like, yeah, that's obviously pretty good. But, and like maybe this is some control bias. It probably is, but like I want to run Alexandra's Mograine and kill them eventually. I really want to have this awesome control tool, Twisting Nether plus get a free 5/5. And I really, really want to have an extra 10 health and draw a card for 2 mana. Tier 1 Blood Death Knight, you know. Wrap it up. That's the meta. We're done here. That's my main class now, by the way. So I was able to put together a few, might I say, very good Blood Death Knight decks out here. I believe it's quite obvious that in your Blood Death Knight control deck, you're gonna want to build a 40 card deck. Control decks want more time, and there are enough good cards to like easily fit 40 into a deck. So you start off with some Heart Strikes to defend early. I didn't include the 1/2 that deals 2 damage because I don't know, if there was more aggro, then you'd probably do want that, but for now I wasn't sure how much aggro there'd be. I'd say the one weakness of Death Knight is that it perhaps doesn't draw that many cards, but Chillfallen Baron is here, so it does draw cards. I think Famished Fool is actually a very good tool for the deck that doesn't draw that many cards. We got Rune Forging in order to draw the Soul Breakers or the Frostmourne at the end. Frostmourne, great card in this type of deck. It's a good control value over time card. You got the Hematurges, of course. You're going to put this into every single Death Knight deck. You may or may not put in Obliterate. I'm not sure. I put it in. Obviously, you're going to have 2 Vampiric Bloods in order to have 60 health with enough Discover. With like Hematurge, maybe you get another Vampiric Blood. You go up to 70. Maybe if you brand your Hematurge, you could end up with 2 extra copies of Vampiric Blood. Who knows? I mean, you got School Teacher in here too, so I don't think it's too crazy that some games are gonna like have found 2 Vampiric Bloods, and then you have 80 health. Got your Asphyxiate, which is you get to make a choice on if you want more Obliterates or more Asphyxiates. Depends a little bit on the meta. Murloc Holmes, because you know it's a control deck. I'll have plenty of times to figure out what the opponent's doing, and I want more cards. Just so much stay alive between the weapon, the 3 mana 3/2, which generates some corpses. You got the life-stealing Fireball. You got the life-stealing Consecration. You got Deathbringer Sourfang in order to keep providing board presence. And you know when you have 60 max health, you don't care as much when you pay 0 mana 5 health to play your 3/5 taunt every single turn. Queen Ashara can actually copy Vampiric Blood, and you know you can play another copy of Vampiric Blood, or you could just get the usual value Colossus or whatever. You got your Talon in order to fetch your Sire Denathrius, because that's late game huge recovery. Disruption against those pesky combo decks, because who knows, maybe the combo deck can somehow get through your 60 or 70 or 80 max health. So you tackle them with Theotar, with Mutinous and Patchwork. Of course, you're going to eventually win the game with Alexandra's Mograine. You got your double Bone Guard Commander and double Soul Stealer for just big board wipes, and then like big taunts and just big boards. Oh, I've never seen a more beautiful deck before. Actually, I have seen a more beautiful deck before. Do you really want your opponent to fall into despair? Well, what if your 60 or 70 or 80 max health wasn't enough? What if you really wanted to gain 79 health with Reno Jackson? Well, this deck can do it. It's got 38 unique cards with a double up on Vampiric Blood and Soul Stealer, because those cards are so good. So yes, it's the classic, oh yes, Trump made a Reno deck and like actually has duplicates in it, but the deck is clearly going to be like long lasting enough that you're going to be able to draw your 2 duplicates and then play your Reno Jackson. I didn't include any cards that I thought were bad in the deck also. So it's basically that last deck. It has like a lot more one-ofs, obviously. So we got Noxious Cadaver, which is a card that I kind of wanted to put in anyways, but didn't have the room for. It's got Rustrot Viper. Could be a good just general attack option to destroy like many of the opponent's weapons. Silver Moon Sentinel, which is a, once you get to turn 8, it's a 3 mana 4/7 Divine Shield with Taunt. Like, that card was so good that I even thought about putting in 2 copies of it, but I couldn't fit it into my other deck. You got generally good stalling cards that discover more cards. You got Treasure Guard, you got Venomous Scorpid. Street Sweeper kind of replaces another Blood Boil. That's a bummer. Blood Boil is definitely better, but, you know, Street Sweeper, whatever, fine. I got another Corpse Explosion because there's not as many ways to spend the corpses, so Corpse Explosion could actually explode for a lot. I think this one's a little spicy. We lack the card draw, but Cornelius Robe can provide a lot of card draw. We got Corrupted Ashbringer, not good enough to make the cut in the other deck, but it's solid enough. An Insatiable Devourer, because we're infusing plenty of times. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really watered down the other Death Knight of Blood too much. And the benefit of being able to heal potentially for 79, 89, 99? Yes, please.